So we had, I'm just trying to set up one thing for Hugo here and then I'll be good. All right. We had a discussion last week and we were supposed to find out a couple things. One, could Virginia handle our tech classes? The answer to that is yes, they can. Looking at a couple different options with combination of deans of students. One, leaving the dean of students in the Franklin with Angie supervising, and also putting a couple hours of dean into the high school. How that would work, we have one individual that we laid off for 2 hours earlier this month or last month. Calling that individual back. That individual wouldn't actually be the one that's doing the dean of students. We would take somebody else out of the classroom. But nonetheless, it would be an additional 2 hours, which if you look on option 2.5 is about $19,000 for that individual to come back for 2 hours. Or you could hire, we also talked about hiring a principal, part-time, interim, whatever you want to call them. A full-time principal is about, with full benefits, is about 100 and almost 50,000. So looking at about 0.8, I put 116 down. It's kind of a random number. It's going to be in that range somewhere. The 19,000 is actual because we know who we would hire back. So anyway, you can fire away questions at me. You can have a conversation. Whatever you need.
First of all, Jeff, option one, I do not support it. I know that some board members who don't do, but
I don't
support option one, and the $245,000 a year in savings, or 250,000 or $227,000 a year in savings. How do you get to that number? That's a 2-year number, right? 245,000 and savings in 2 years, right?
No, I actually have, if you look at the screen right now, it's have 545,000 down, and that would be a year. And all that is the maintenance personnel, actually the custodial personnel, not even the maintenance personnel, custodial personnel and utilities. There'd actually be a pretty significant drop in maintenance too. I mean, the real number there is probably closer to 700,000-800,000.
So you're saying that?
Is that a per year number? Excuse me, Bill. Is that
yes? That is a
Yeah.
per year number.
But how do you get to that? Can I get a breakdown of that, Jeff?
It's all it's all the custodial people and it's all the utilities.
How many custodial people would there be?
4.
4 people, and how much a year? How much a year are they making? 4 people times, say, 100,000. That's, well, say 400,000. Okay, all right. They don't make 100,000 a year. I doubt if they make that.
It's about 80 with benefits.
So we'd have 4 custodians losing their job.
Yeah, that's how I see it.
Yep.
One of the things that we talked about too with option one that I had asked about is the impact if, again, I know it's trying to predict the future, but unfortunately that's our world right now, is trying to predict and anticipate where we're going to be at, is what it's going to potentially look like to be squeezing our kids over into the 2 buildings in Eveleth with the concerns of not being able to even gather that number of students back in. Is that going to then push more kids out to have to do remote education. I know we talked about kind of, that there's a potential for a hybrid model where they would be coming in for part of the day and then working from home for the other parts of the day. And is that going to impact where kids are going to have more time working from home versus being in school? Because I think some kids have handled that fine. I think some kids really need the structure that school provides, and it's been a struggle for them. So I just really worry about that.
I mean, and you look at this option one, which I'll say again, I do not support. I mean, the people in Gilbert, we had this whole plan of exiting this campus in 2 years. And I get the dollar amount. I mean, I get the dollar amount savings. I mean, I'm a businessman. I get it. But I think it would be a blatant bait and switch if we close that school early. And I think it would create all kinds of disruption and I mean, to the citizens of Gilbert or even kids in Eveleth. I mean, the citizens of Eveleth and Gilbert, I don't know, probably have a problem with that, with closing that campus. It's something I won't entertain, won't support, just because as hard as it was to get the darn thing passed, barely passed. It didn't pass Eveleth, didn't pass Gilbert, and then now we're going to close the campus early. I just don't think that would be.
And it's never been a discussion until 2 weeks ago.
Right, it's never been a discussion.
And I understand I understand the money savings as well. But again, we have a lot of transition coming up, and I think just trying to get this done before next school year is just creating chaos for families and for teachers and staff. And I think it's the wrong move. I think it's the wrong move for Gilbert, and I think it's the wrong move for current students and staff and families.
How does it cause chaos, Brandy? The kids that go in 4th grade in Eveleth this year, okay, you don't go to Gilbert, you can stay in Eveleth. It's just I don't get where it would be chaotic. I disagree with that. It's you're going to
because the teachers would have to uproot their rooms, they would have to find a new location, do their new rooms. I'm sure it would involve other classrooms having to move so that you can make room for those other people coming in. I just don't think that it's a good decision right now.
Good. Sorry, I was muted. I think that there, so I'm not one that is scared of change. I get excited with it, and I think it's possibilities to do things better and improve. However, with that being said, I'm also realistic that some people struggle with change. I think our school district is going through a massive amount of change. Exciting, but still stressful for people. And honestly, are we sitting in June talking about closing a building within 2.5 months? Like, that doesn't even seem realistic to me, and to say that wouldn't be chaotic. Heck yeah, it would be chaotic. That's 2.5 months of closing the entire building and restructuring how we are doing school in Eveleth, at Franklin and the high school. Like, yeah, that's a lot. And on top of then still asking them to be part of the advisory councils and giving the input for all the other changes that we have going on. I get the financial piece. I agree with Bill. I do think I actually try to have a very realistic approach on what I feel is socially appropriate and also keeping in mind the financial piece, because we are stewards of our taxpayers and having to be responsible for that. But this is one where I just feel like the impact that it can have for our students and faculty and the culture of our communities is much more detrimental than the financial savings. If we can figure out a way to make things work right now with minimal cost, I'm looking at option 2.5. I think, it's giving, recognizing that Angie, of course, cannot continue to just do that solo, and we would need some additional supports in there for her. But I get the financial savings, but I think that the other impacts are too great. And I'll let her
I
say
agree,
that.
and like you had mentioned too, Kelly, about next fall, nobody knows what next fall is going to bring yet. Whether we're still gonna be, online learning, or, nobody knows what that's gonna look like as well, and I do think it would be chaotic. And I agree on the options. I think 2.5 is the best decision for us right now. Cost wise, that's what I support. Option 2.5.
I guess just chime in here. While the financial savings certainly would be good, I do I do think if this is something that we were considering, we probably should have been talking about it earlier. As far as option one, I certainly would have a hard time stomaching going out and hiring, an additional interim principal. If for a minute I thought that would help our kids' educational experience, I certainly would be open to that. But I don't think that would happen, and I do think that option 2.5 seems to be the best because, when we heard from Angie at the last meeting, she indicated that, yeah, she could do both, but it would put a big burden on, both Mr. Pillsbury and Ms. Tassoni. So I think if we went the bringing someone back, the time it isn't hiring someone new, and I think we'd be able to accomplish much the same we would with option 3. In some ways, I think it would be a lot more seamless than bringing in someone brand new.
Jeff, it's Polly. Is option 3, 116,000 include full-time, and does that include benefits?
What I heard last time was like 0.8 of a full-time principal, so that's the number.
Well, okay, that's not what I suggested.
We could argue about it all night long about what that number is, and I'm just telling you, it's a ballpark figure. So that's about what it's going to cost you.
Does that include benefits?
Like I said, we can argue about details of that all night long, but you don't know if somebody's going to take benefits, not take benefits, part-time, full-time. I mean,
That's
it's
right.
middle ground.
So,
A full-time principal costs about $150,000. How about that?
okay, but we did not get what you did not figure out what a half-time interim principal would be with or without benefits.
We don't have a contract for an interim principal, so I don't know.
Virginia does.
But
Come on,
we don't.
Virginia's got assistant principals. It was an assistant principal also. So just want to get the right information out there so at least we know what we're talking about. I think that 116 is inflated. If you're going to go with a dean of students anyway, but at least let's get the right information.
What right information are you looking for? You're
Well,
looking for a number that doesn't exist. I'm giving you a ballpark. That's about what it costs.
For a half-time assistant principal without benefits.
0.8, right?
0.8.
Why? I know Angie said 0.8, but it could still be half-time. It could be 0.5.
Well, take half of 150,000, then that's halftime.
That's with benefits. Okay. All right, go ahead. You're going to do what you're going to do anyway. I can see the writing on the wall here. And I didn't have any chance to see this before the meeting, this option 3, but it sounds like it's...
Option 3 was there. We talked about last week.
No, 2.5 I meant. 2.5.
It was certainly discussed at the last meeting.
I believe I brought it up.
I asked Jeff today, and I've asked him for the details that we were going to be talking about at tonight's meeting. I really don't appreciate many times when we get information that we're going to be talking about and deciding on at the last minute to make snap decisions. Some of us have to make snap decisions because some of us don't get the information beforehand and or have time to absorb it. So that's another comment I have.
So, Jeff, are you looking for recommendations of what to do?
You
With
guys,
this-
you
with
guys
these
tell,
options?
you guys tell me what you wanna do and we'll get her done.
I say let's entertain 2.5 at this time. That's me.
That's my thoughts as well. And Polly, do you have the ability to show video? Because I believe statute says that you have to be seen.
Well, if you give me a chance, I just flew into my house because I couldn't access remotely. So let me get set up and I'll do
Okay.
that.
I'm just making sure for our next meeting.
I agree. I believe 2.5 is the option to pursue.
And that would mean though that Angie would still have to do all those evaluations, so it doesn't really take a load off of her. It actually adds on to her duties. And all right.
Actually, Angie said that would be helpful, having somebody that would act in that role to look at attendance and take care of those types of things, to lessen the load on Laura and Charles. Angie said that this is a workable option.
Since we have Angie on the phone, do we want, or on with us, should we gather some additional thoughts? I mean, I want to be, you know, and not to say that whatever's requested is always going to work that way for someone. I mean, sometimes we have to make tough decisions that aren't necessarily ideal, and I realize that. I mean, the ideal piece would probably be getting another principal, and Angie's able to just be a principal for her building. That, of course, would be ideal, but I would like to hear kind of Angie's thoughts on it as a temporary option for the next couple of years.
Well, obviously my main concern was just making sure that we had the high school office covered, which, you know, even if it's a couple hours a day, that will definitely help. And then the other thing is that, you know, like this past school year, for me to do the non-tenured evaluations, I was given $100 stipend for each observation I did. So I would look at, you know, because it's not only the observations and the supervision of more people, but it's just also, you know, another building. You still have the open houses, you still have staff meetings, so there's a lot more that will be added besides just doing the evaluations. So I would like to talk to somebody about a stipend for taking on the extra duties.
And Jeff was receiving a stipend.
So then that would be, so then needing to keep in mind that may be an additional, you know, if we're looking at option 2.5, then we need to also be realistic too in, you know, this is going above and, you know, above Angie's current contract of what her contract is set up for her to be doing. So what would that additional potential for additional cost be?
When I figured that out though, I left the $10,000 stipend. That if you look at option 2, a dean of students in the Franklin and Angie supervising, that's assuming she still gets a stipend, so there isn't a change there.
Okay.
Unless you go above what I was getting for a stipend.
Okay. So there's 10,000.
How does that? I mean, how does that work with the contract?
I mean, I would hope that
When
this
when-
contract,
Well,
Yeah.
when Jeff was, and I never figured that one out. I mean, as far as the stipend goes, but when that was, I mean, when you aren't a bargaining unit employee, it's a lot easier. My understanding is to do those kinds of things than when you're in a bargaining.
You'd have to make an amendment to the contract.
Which I think is easy enough to do.
yeah.
So we'd still be looking at, you know, $29,000 versus 116 or 150 or 100, you know, 75 or whatever for part-time.
No, that remember, Brandy, that 10,000 is already in that figure, so it's still 19. Unless you
Sorry,
went,
yeah.
unless you went over it.
Sorry. I'm not great with numbers. I've been honest about that.
But to bring someone back as a 0.4 FTE, it's under $10,000.
Yep.
That doesn't make sense to me.
Yep. It's 19,000.
And then you have to add the 10.
But
No, the
what he's
10 is
saying
in there.
What Jeff is saying is he currently gets the 10,000, so there wouldn't be a change. It would just transfer, that 10,000 would transfer over to Angie. That's something that's already being paid, so it's not in addition, is what he's saying.
That was all taken care of when we took care of the superintendent, Jeff. This would be additional. Because that was all factored in during those discussions, what Jeff's total compensation was. I mean, we talked about that at length.
That is true as well.
So yeah, I mean, both, it's just however you look at it. So it would be 19,000 to cover that 0.4 FTE with a knowledge of that potential of that 10,000 shifting over to Angie's contract that previously was on the superintendent's contract to assist with covering. But that would be, I mean, I understand what Jeff is saying, but I understand exactly what Matt's saying too, is that was accounted for through the discussions of moving into another superintendent, into one superintendent and into Jeff's new position as of July 1st too. So I do think it's important to keep that 10,000 also identified in option 2.5 when we consider that.
Matt, to answer your question about the 19,000.4, that the individual that would be called back is at about, with benefits, about 48,000. So if you do 0.4 of that, it's about a little over 19,000.
Right. That's for the 0.4 FTE. It does not include the 10,000.
No.
And I was hearing that it did include the 10,000.
Well,
but I heard wrong. I get it.
Well, it's Jeff, or it did include the 10,000 because the 10,000 would go to Angie. I mean, if you really wanted to like put everything in a pot and then take it back out, you could say 29,000, but that $10,000 would go from Jeff to Angie, so it wouldn't be reflective on that 19,000. You following that, Matt?
I follow it. I'm all for giving Angie help.
Yes.
Agreed. Agreed.
all right, we done with this one?
No, I have a question.
Yes, 2.5.
It sounds like we have somebody in mind to call back. Do we?
Yes.
We talked about that at the last study session.
Well,
Yes, we
wait
did.
now. I thought when even in the teacher's contract, when there's an opening, you have to post and let anybody who might be interested in it. But I know she's on ULA or she's probationary, but we can't just handpick somebody like that, can we?
Teacher on special assignment can be handpicked.
You think that's right?
Absolutely.
Okay. How do we know this is going to be the best person for the job? I remember when Paul Brainerd was the dean of students. Oh, he was the best person for the job, and nobody else was. And then when he left us to go to take an assistant principal, oh, we found another best person, for the job.
Because that's who Angie told me she's comfortable working with, so that's what I'm going to recommend.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So do you know who this person is, Jeff?
The actual recall would be Susan Ellison, and the person that would move into the 0.4 Dean of Students would be Alyssa Bowe, and Susan would take 0.4 of what Alyssa is currently teaching.
Okay.
Oh, that's real nice.
But the 0.4, Polly, is bringing somebody back and giving somebody more time with their job. we're calling somebody back.
I know, I'm just talking about who is the best person for the job, and do we know that? So we're moving to.
And I would assume that the people that are in the building working with those people would know that.
All right, that's all I have.
Okay, can we move along now then, Jeff?
Sure. So the other one that we got to talk about is the athletic director contract. We met with her last week, and she, on the bottom of my sheet here, she's currently at 220 days. She'd like to go to 195 days. She would like 5 vacation days. She wants the state conference in her contract. She also requested, and these are out of contractual things, but she would like secretarial support, and she wants to, rather than being responsible for all game management, she wants to be responsible for 50%.
In the past, haven't we hired people to supervise at games? I know that I've seen people at hockey games that were supervising.
We do, because obviously she's one person, so when there's multiple events on the same night, we do hire people for that.
I mean, I've been to many sporting events where there's actually been, staff that has been hired or been on assignment to go and take money, or not take money, but just kind of oversee to make sure things didn't get out of hand. Basically is what I've seen over the years.
Those people had different responsibilities and reasons for being there. They didn't have any main supervisory, and like say the person in authority at that point in time, that's always been the athletic director. So yes, you have extra people there to kind of like not crowd control, but like to have some extra eyes and things and help if you need it.
So Jeff, this is all. So in other words, is she wants secretarial support and game management. I mean, after listening to her being at all these games and having to take all the money for the secretarial support, having to take all the money and order uniforms and do this, do that, paperwork, I believe that her requests are not out of line at all.
A couple of questions that I have.
I would support.
Before we jump into supporting or not, or the secretary of support, Jeff, you had said that you felt that that Stacy would have some capacity to be able to assist with that.
Yes. However, Noel did meet with both these two last week, and I think they kind of agreed that they would, for the next year, they would use Virginia's athletic director secretary. Both of them could.
Or for both? Okay.
Yeah.
So
Virginia has 2 of them, correct?
Yeah, one of them's technically community ed, and that individual would help with community ed with us too.
So they have a athletic director, he has an assistant, and then there's a community ed person. So they have 3 of them doing the job that we have 1 doing. Yep.
Right.
So then the other question that I had then for the game management, did we ever, what was the expectation previously? I know we only had a part-time athletic director before because it was a shared position with that on top of the teaching. What was the expectation for game management then?
It wasn't a lot different. Obviously there are overlap. There's nights where there's more than one home event. There's and he was expected to come to all the games, but it's a different situation there because that was 0.4 of his teaching assignment, and then there was an additional contract on top of that for things like that. So basically,
it's as far as the game management, I've been hanging around the hip for decades, and I can count on one hand the number of times I saw the former athletic director at the hip.
Okay. So I was just interested on what the past practice has been, not necessarily that it matters right now. I mean, we're changing things as we go. as we're going through the consolidation and everything else, but I was just interested on what the past practice is, because to me, it sounds like a lot to say, you know, here you have this full time, and then on top of it, you're also going to be doing the 100% of the game management, you know, without having some relief to be able to have some days, because there's a lot of games that are going on any given week throughout the school year. So it doesn't seem unreasonable to ask for the support, but that would be an additional cost, because it's not like we've been paying that, you know, it's been included as part of the athletic director's, you know, pay and responsibility. Do we have an idea of what that additional cost would be then? If we were to say, yeah, let's try to get some halftime support in there?
What do you mean by halftime support? I mean,
Or what, some support for the game management, where it's not expected that the athletic director is there doing that for all of the home games.
well, currently we pay $50 a night. And
So then
we
what
could
would
debate
be-
whether that's good or bad, but that's what we're currently doing. Is when she's not able to be somewhere, we pay somebody $50 a night to be there.
Do we know how many nights this could possibly entail then?
I think at the last meeting, she had mentioned it was somewhere, I think, in the 70s.
70,
So if you're
70
talking half
72
that-
is the number.
Okay.
I believe we had, previous ADs, we had John Wagner and Dennis Sabart, they were at halftime, and I think Kyle Thorson was just under full-time, like 7.8 or something. And those were our past ADs that did what she's doing now, and not less, with less students.
Well, I kind of look at this as that we're joining up with Virginia. We're going to be one in a month here, and I don't think she's asking to be brought even close to the level that the Virginia AD is. Has there been any discussion on salary or any indications to you, Jeff?
Well, I know somebody asked her the question when we met, and her response was whatever you normally give, and she didn't elaborate on that. So I'm going to assume 3 and 2. That's what's been normal.
Okay, I'm just kind of confused, or I'm a little perplexed that is a non-discrete.
That isn't what? Well, she didn't specify.
This is specifically on the screen is what she asked.
Yes.
Right, but if you're assuming it's 3 and 2, I guess then it probably should be there for consideration. Is all I'm saying.
Right.
You know, nothing against JoJo, but let's talk about the position and not the person. She's asking for 25 less days, increase and less duties, 5 vacation days. She's asking for more, doing less, getting some help, even if we use Virginia's resources there, and then a 3 and a 2, year 1 and year 2 on top of that. Again, it's not about the person.
Well, she compared her duties to what other districts are making, other athletic directors. I don't know. She talked about how many, about 20 different schools, and she's way under the dollar amount that an athletic director would make. Plus, they do less. You know, they do less. They have all the support staff. You know what I'm saying?
I know, but she's asking for 25 less days, 5 vacation days. That's more time off than she has now. And I even hate to say she, because I'm just, again, talking about the position, no matter who it is. And how many years will we need a second, our own person in this position, activities director or AD/activities person? Our sports are getting combined more and more, and sooner and sooner. Is this a 2-year commitment?
That's what we're talking about here, and it'll be at least 2 years before, you know, my concern is that we're just getting in at the tip of the iceberg as far as combining sports and activities, and this is going to be a lightning rod for controversy, and I do think it's controversy because I do think we need someone very strong to stand up for the interests of our current district as it stands right now, and we have a chance to be able to do that in the next couple of weeks here, and after that we won't. Now I do know I have spoken with Dr. Schmidt, and I have talked to some of the folks in Virginia, and universally they believe that as the joint powers discussed at our last meeting, that we really need representation on the Eveleth side to be able to move forward and transition this. It's going to be, combining these sports is going to be an extremely difficult thing, and I think we all know that.
As the sports are combined, sport by sport, which person will take over the AD responsibilities?
That will be a decision that the school board of 2933 or whatever the new number is will make.
2909.
Thank you, Bill.
And will that be like dollar wise? How is that going to be figured out to measure it?
That'll be figured out just like every other contract and employee compensation is figured out when that time comes.
Yeah, but we're talking about within this 2-year period. When duties change, duties commensurate with salaries and job descriptions. If we're making a 2-year contract commitment here, when things change, what changes in, when duties change, what changes in compensation? Or not, it sounds like not.
You know, I'm not comfortable to say, oh yeah, we'll be adjusting that or we'll be working it into the contract right now, because it's not working with Josh's contract either. So I think that would be a separate conversation that would be had, and I wouldn't necessarily say, oh, as duties are shifting or, you know, we start combining, that we're going to start cutting salaries because you won't be overseeing this one program area, you know, let's say basketball or something. I think that they clearly have seen, so I think first off, I think both positions and the individuals in both positions have shown an ability to work effectively together on behalf of both of the current student bodies and everything else to try to find some resolution with the sports that have so far combined. I anticipate that would continue, and we do know that there are going to be hiccups along the way as they have encountered with the combining of the coaches and how that transition works, that both of them will be involved to some degree, and once things are smoothed out, then they may be making some decisions of, you know what, JoJo, you would be taking this, Josh would be taking this program area, or they will continue to team it over the next 2 years. But I think it's so hard to tell, and I'm not comfortable to say, oh, well, I would anticipate that, you know, that their salary would be decreasing because of responsibilities changing. I think the responsibilities will continue to change and evolve over the next 2 years, but I don't think that's necessarily going to be a decrease in their workload. I think they're still going to have a lot of work and a lot of time spent in this stuff. It just might be changing slightly on the specific duties that they're going to have, but we don't know what that will be.
And I just see that with the new school district and the new state-of-the-art facilities, and someone's going to have to oversee the possibility of who's going to run the swimming sectionals we're going to have, who's going to you know, you're gonna have a track meet and our thing, you know, a sectional track meet. Who's gonna be taking care of that? You could have a football playoff game at our facility. You could have baseball sectionals at our facility. I mean, someone's gonna with the new facility. I mean, someone's gonna have to oversee that and make sure that it's done and, you know, make sure that it's taken care of. You know, I mean, that's just something to look at. That'd be another job added.
First, I'd say well said, Kelly, and to Bill's point, before we get to the point where you're going to have other schools that are potentially interested in using our football field or baseball field or swimming pool or et cetera, I do think that it would only be logical that someone in the athletic department, potentially it's certainly more than one individual, will be involved in some of these fundraising efforts to try and be able to get some of the nice things or things that have been cut for budget purposes, such as team rooms at the football field. I mean, we've talked about that in the joint powers, that, you know, there's an opportunity. I think Proctor, I think St. Luke's, for instance, paid Proctor $1 million to have Amy right in their arena. And I certainly believe that, you know, should the new school board choose to accept those kinds of things and to have some form of advertising on our campus, I think it would only make sense that folks on the athletic part of things would be involved with that. That'll happen, obviously, a long time before the things are ready for use, before our facilities are ready.
All right, what do you want to do for a next step here?
Why don't you bring that to JoJo and see if she agrees to it?
Okay. The only thing I will throw out there for the board, because this is an odd, actually it's even, this is an odd situation where we have an even year contract. Most of ours are odd year. I need to call Margaret just to see how we should best handle that, because with the consolidation, all of our other contracts will carry for another year. And then at that point, they need to be negotiated into one. I'm just not sure how this one is going to work out. It'll be fine. I'm not throwing up any red flags. I just want to make sure we do it the right way.
And I believe to that point, Jeff, I mean, the current contract expires on July 31st, correct? Rather than June 30th that most of them were?
Yeah. So anyway, I'll call Margaret in the morning and just to make sure we have the right thing, because it is possible that after a year that I don't know that we can have two different athletic director contracts. You know what I'm saying?
Then do a 1-year contract.
I'm gonna call Margaret tomorrow just to make sure we're doing it the right way.
So Jeff, the next step on this would be to, if JoJo agrees to this, then we would then have a special meeting to approve it?
Sure.
Would we do that?
Yep.
We get that done before, right away? I mean, well, how long would it take you to, once you get a hold of Margaret and find out the legal part of this, you would contact JoJo and then she would look at it, and if she agrees to it, then can we have a special meeting to all vote on it?
Yeah.
Well, we still have a second regular meeting too in June.
Well, actually, in about half hour or so, I'm going to tell you how I'm going to take that away from you. So it would have to be a special meeting. We're planning, okay. I'll give you early preview. We're planning on having a joint study session to try to go over some procedural things prior to July 1st.
Okay.
That's on June 22nd.
Yep.
Got it.
But we can
We
have,
can still
have
do a special meeting an hour early or
yeah,
whatever.
Yeah. We can still get it done.
All right.
I guess just, I mean, I think at the last study session, when we talked about the, non-contract, employees, we all kind of left there with the consensus that that's what we would discuss at the board meeting. I mean, are we, I guess, is there a consensus of, that we're comfortable with the ask? Personally, I am.
Say that again, you're comfortable with what, Matt?
Well, I mean, when we had the discussion with the other non-bargaining unit contracts, I got the feeling that when we were done with that discussion, which was also a discussion, we were comfortable with what we were going to put in front of those individuals, which we later did, and they were good with it. I guess my question is, am I hearing that we're at that point right now? And I'm saying I am.
Oh, I am.
So are you suggesting at the end of tonight's meeting? Is that what
No,
you're suggesting?
not at all. Just, that's what these studies say. I mean, I thought we're to get a feel for where people are at for what, so we can bring it to a regular meeting, and so we have an idea of what to bring to a regular.
I agree.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I did the game management kind of numbers that I was wondering about with the numbers of games that you guys provided for me, and taking kind of half of that. And that would, if we're keeping it at 50, it would be bringing it right around $1,800 would be the additional cost that coverage would entail, than to have someone else covering some of those games to give some relief.
And I do think there is that would be more in line with the expectation with Virginia AD, from what I've heard.
I'm good.
Okay, and on that game management, are you gonna put a number or something on there, or just, is it gonna be?
Number.
I think he said $50 a game, right?
No, I said that's what we currently pay people.
Okay, but are you gonna have game management,
Like,
game management?
50%?
Huh?
That's basically reduced in half.
The number that they're asking about, I believe, is, are we putting a number? So the activity director support request, game management, what does that mean? So is it that she doesn't have to do any game management, or how much are we still saying that would be within the contract for game management duties?
No, my suggestion would be to change her job description so it says that the expectation is she'd be at 50% of the home games.
Okay,
Yeah, that's what I was hearing also.
okay.
Agreed.
I'm good with it.
I am too.
All right. I will draw that up and throw it in front of her tomorrow, and if I get a thumbs up, I'll schedule a meeting. Could be before the 22nd meeting, and we'll get her going, I guess. I gotta call Margaret tomorrow too.
Okay,
I will see you guys in 39 minutes.
thanks, Jeff.
Sounds good. See you later.
Yeah.
Ugh.